All right, Matt, I got some politics for you, dude. Before we get into Helldivers and Next Fest and all that fun stuff, I got a political situation that I've debated multiple times with multiple people before.
I'm a little scared, but keep going.
People usually get riled up over this. When it comes to hooded sweatshirts, hoodies, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Zipper or no zipper?
Ooh. Zipper.
Hey, we're in the minority on that one, apparently.
Really?
Apparently all these youngins coming up these days are like, zipper, why would I need one of those?
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I can't not wear, all my hoodies have zippers. Like if
Feels
I have
like
one,
it's just more usable. Like there's more options. You can have half zip up, if you need a little bit of more breathability, if you want it just completely out,
Yeah.
Flying loose, you have that as an option.
You can regulate your temperature without having to take off your entire sweatshirt. Also,
exactly.
if you don't want to like mess up your hair, you've got...
That's the other thing I was going to bring up. Not that I got much hair to work with anymore, but back in the day, it would always like scuff up the hair.
You got a hair product in, you got your glasses on. You don't have to take off your glasses to take off a zipped up hooded sweatshirt. I mean, like the benefits are innumerable. The downsides are pretty much negligible. I don't know, your zipper clinks on stuff. Like, come on. Come on.
No, completely agree. Yeah, you are correct.
Let us know, guys, what your stance is on hooded sweatshirts in the comments below. Okay.
God, I can't believe we're bringing politics into the podcast now. I thought we were gonna be better than that.
The thing is I thought it was an obvious zipper was the answer, but apparently we're in the minority. Most people are like no zipper hoodies, and I just don't understand it. It seems insane to me.
I mean, at the end of the day, they are just hoodies.
I mean, let me just say, if there's a candidate running for president who's like going on like zipper hoodies, that's like his platform, like he's getting my vote. Let me just say that.
All right. It's a wedge issue for you, huh?
It is. Oh man. So gaming wise, my God, Next Fest has just been like blasting people left and right. Some pretty good stuff out there.
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah,
I played a lot of games in the last week.
I tuned into your stream a few times, and I was just like watching you cycle through the games. I was like, damn, Matt is hitting it hard right now.
Yeah, no, it's great. The one game though that right now that was not a part of Next Fest, it released, that is absolutely blown me away is Helldivers 2.
I didn't play it yet because I know as soon as I load it up, I'm gonna be like 12 hours in before I realize what happened, and then I'm like, huh, like
This might sound a little hyperbolic, but I actually think it's one of the best co-op FPS, not FPS, but FPS shooters ever made. It is.
I swear to God, you say this like every week or two, Matt. There's a new. It's the best something. It's World 1 week. It's Helldivers.
I didn't say World was the best of anything.
You said it was pretty darn good though.
I said World. Yeah, World was fun. I enjoyed it. Yeah. I didn't say it was the best. You know what? You put words in my mouth, young man.
Maybe
young
it's not like we have
snapper.
Video evidence to back up any of this stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's fine. Prove it.
Oh, I'm just yeah. So Helldivers 2. I actually read the book Helldivers.
Oh, I didn't know there was books behind it.
Yeah, right. Well, I read it on an airplane because I needed a book to read right before a long flight. So I just grabbed it. I was like, I don't know. I didn't have time to do any research. It reads like a video game. Like it feels like if you ever read the Doom novel or something where it's just like, and then I shot the cyber demon and ripped his head off.
I shot him in the face.
That's kind of what Helldivers 2 is. You're just reading it and you're like, oh, I think this guy wrote the book to either become a movie or a video game because it reads like that.
It reads like it.
Yeah. And I didn't particularly enjoy the book because it was kind of just cheesy sci-fi stuff, but
that's fair.
I did think while reading it that this would make a better game than it would a book. So I've always been curious about the game.
The game is fantastic. I mean, like I said, I might be a little bit hyperbolic, but the game is truly. I think it's amazing. What it does is that it is a co-op game. You don't really play it solo. I tried it solo, where you literally are just by yourself. You don't match make with anyone, and you're just on by yourself. and it's not really accommodating that play style. There are literally doors that you cannot open up that will give you resources because you need 2 people to be able to open them. You'll get bombarded from like every angle. Like you really do need to have assistance from other people. But when you do, and you're playing with buddies, it is pure chaotic, just, horde chaos, and it's a blast.
Yeah.
I love it.
How many people is it designed for?
4 total.
4 total.
Yeah.
And then
yourself.
you drop down onto the planet through these like orbiting ships kind of. Are they in the atmosphere or are they in space?
So you're in space, and one of the things that I think you should highlight is the sound design is so good mixed with like the music. And even when you drop in on these pods and the music swells, and the audio for when you actually drop in is just incredible, and it gets you so hyped, and everything across the board, like weapons sound fantastic, the enemy sounds fantastic, and it all adds to that immersion. But you start in your ship, and that's kind of like your main base where you'll get upgrades. That's where you're going to buy your different loadouts or your stratagems, and you then take that into battle.
It's funny. It sounds very much like the cycle in terms of like how you prepare to enter a mission, where you have this orbiting ship, you gear up, and then you just take a drop pod down onto the planet.
You drop down.
Yeah. Although the cycle is an extraction shooter, which is
the gameplay loop is entirely different. But what I think is really interesting and really clever is that one problem with playing on, because it's a console game too, and this also is a problem on PC sometimes, is you don't have enough buttons for call-ins and bringing in, you got your primary weapon, secondary weapon, and then you've got all these different stratagems, which can be from...
What are you playing on? Are you playing PC or console?
I'm playing PC, yeah.
Yeah.
But
you don't have enough buttons on PC is what you're saying.
That's like a good point. That's a little bit ignorant. Yeah, that was stupid of me to say. But for console, for sure.
Okay.
So, but even on PC, like there you can have like 8 different things that you can call in, and most people are not going to get over to their 8 key, right, to call something in, right?
Yeah.
You hear what I mean?
Yep.
So for this, you click a button, and then you have to do a little combo. It's like Dance Dance Revolution, where you have a resupply. And it's the same every time, but you have to type in like basically the combination for the resupply, and then it will call down your ammo. If you want to bring in a turret, you want to bring in
it's like
artillery
a buy
strike.
order in Counter-Strike or something. If you're trying to do it fast, where you have
kind of like that. Yeah,
I haven't played Counter-Strike in like 5 years, so I don't know what the modern UI is like. But previously, you'd have to hit like B to buy, and then like there'd be a sub menu, so it'd be like 1 or 2, and that would take you to the sub. And once you learn the combos, it'd be like B123 or something like that. And then
but a little bit more involved. Not involved, but it will be you hold down your button, and then you'll have to do up, down, left, right, up, and that will be 1.
Okay,
you got that.
Have they not heard of radial menus? Is that they're not?
Yeah, but this is way more interesting. Like I like it actually a lot more this way. I find it to be more engaging, and it kind of just adds to everything has weight in the game. So it's not realistic, but it's not a snappy FPS game where you are just snapping to all the things. Your character will like actually move his weapon slowly depending on how heavy it is.
You can get away with that in PvE. People don't complain as much.
Yeah. And so it kind of, and it even has like Tarkov mechanics where your leg will get like hit and you'll start limping, or your arm gets hit and your now that weapon that was swaying not so much is now like it takes a while to get it over.
That's
so you have to hit a stim.
That's got to be fun when the hordes of mutated creatures are like barreling down upon you, and like Timmy's leg is wounded.
It's terrifying. And that's one thing I think the game does incredibly well. Alongside that sound design that sounds incredible, you then have these incredible animations where you'll be fighting essentially giant bugs. And when you see those movies where like they're like on the ground and they're just like last man standing, and then like the horde is just swarming around them, and they're all just like blowing up in front of them, but they're getting closer and closer and closer and closer. It's like that, but like every moment, it's so much fun. It's very cinematic.
Yeah. It's become one of the best-selling titles on Steam. I mean, it's gonna be one of the better-selling games of this year, probably. It seems like.
Yeah.
It's impressive, man. I will probably check it out. I just didn't have time to. I was a sucker. I will say that the first game that I wanted to check out and that I did check out from the Next Fest was Homeworld 3.
Yeah, I tried that too.
A little bit let down by it, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't like it too much either.
Yeah, I was like all excited for it, and I think they hit it with the styling on Homeworld 3, like the sound design, the visuals are cool, but the UI is really clunky. I don't like moving around and trying to control the units. It just kind of is janky. Sometimes guys don't do what you want them to do, and yeah, it just sort of felt like, is there a reason for it to be this overly complex? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, all you're doing is moving a few units around the map.
Yep.
And the challenge of the game just feels like you're fighting the UI more than you're fighting the other enemies. You know, you're like,
that was my big problem too.
Yeah.
And I felt like, keep going.
Well, and then they have the thing that I hated with it was the unit upgrades, where it's like, when you, in prior games, you could upgrade stuff like, you know, armor and accuracy and speed or something like that would make them just passively better in combat. Now it's these activation abilities. What do they call it in the RTS world? I think RPM tax or something, or what is it? Not RPM, but
I don't know the term, but I know what you're talking about. Basically, you now need to activate abilities that are going to just add to your RPM. Your APM.
APM, actions per minute. Yeah, APM tax, right? So you have to always be like aware of your units and when their ability is cooled down, and then hit the cooldown when they're in and it's just like, if there's a fighter squadron engaging enemies, they're just going to use what they have available to them. Like, I don't need to tell them to like turn on the good guns now. Like, come on, guys.
Right. Yeah.
But
activate now. We need our firepower now.
Yeah. So I didn't like that. I like games that are more about the strategy versus your ability to micromanage everything.
I felt like the upgrades also came with negatives as well. There was a few. Maybe I'm thinking of, because I played a ton of games over so maybe I'm just thinking another title. But I thought that there were some upgrades where it was like, oh, like I might be thinking another game. Never mind. Yeah. I don't want to speak. You know, misinformation.
Yeah. They did delay the game after the feedback from Next Fest.
Feedback did not seem great.
So that's good on that front. It's not that like visually or the sound design or anything like that was not great, but it just felt unnecessarily cumbersome. And the main draw for me anyway is single player. So the demo was not single player. It was sort of kind of a roguelike co-op type thing. And it was like, okay, that's never been Homeworld's strong suit. So it didn't feel like the game's strong suit necessarily. So yeah, I guess my hype for that game was pretty high because I was like, oh my God, there hasn't been a Homeworld game in like 20 years or something. This is going to be the next Homeworld game. And then I played the first demo and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I had a couple issues with it. The main is, and the hardest thing that they're going to have to overcome is that it's a 3D game. It's in space. So there's all these different directions, and trying to manage and move your units to where you want them to be was really challenging, at least during the demo. Maybe it gets better as time goes on, but I already felt like this was really awkward. So that was one thing. And then the other was I could not really tell what units I was looking at. There was like a scout unit, and then there was like a slightly more like offensive oriented, and it like looked the exact same but slightly bigger. And I was like, this is not great.
Plus, you have to be zoomed out so far most of the time that you're just like, is that a frigate next to my fighter? I can't tell. It's so tiny. Yeah, it's funny because when those games came out, the original ones, they were like close to, I don't know, must have been around the year, somewhere in the 90s, I think. I don't know, a long time ago. And the 3D space navigation at that time was sort of like nobody was doing that because it was a major technical accomplishment for them. So that was kind of an appeal back then. Now it's like no big deal. Of course you can do 3D space navigation in an RTS. Now developers have to ask the question of why are we doing 3D space navigation in an RTS? Is there a good reason to move your units higher or lower? The demo didn't really indicate much to me that it did add anything to the gameplay other than like units could maybe flank you from underneath a platform or something, which kind of interesting, but probably not worth the incredibly cumbersome UI to do so.
I agree.
And they didn't improve the UI, in my opinion, that much from the original games. Like the navigation wasn't particularly, it was okay in the original games, and I thought they would have just made it much cleaner and easier in this one. Somehow figured out a way around it, but not really. So yeah, I'm not sure what to make of it yet. I am excited about the prospect of the story. I just hope I'm not like fighting the UI the whole time.
You might be. Well, hopefully, I don't know. It's the 3D space is going to be their biggest. It's going to be the biggest hurdle, and I hope that they can make it work. But I'm a little skeptical. I could see once people get a handle on how the game works, that there'll be some nice depth there. But it's going to be a struggle for your average person, I think.
Yeah. So I know Helldivers is sort of your like best game you played in the past couple of weeks, but
can we talk a little? I won't lie. Can we talk a little bit more about Helldivers?
Okay, let's get into it, man.
Because there was one thing I wanted to mention, and that
what is the premise of the game? So how does the game set up the premise? Because I know what the premise in the books is.
You are spreading democracy across the galaxy, Level Cap.
That's really funny because at least in the first Helldivers book, it's not really about that at all.
So it's you're a member of Super Earth, which is Super Earth, of course you are, and there are these there's these aliens, Tyranids, I think is what they're called. Could be pronounced wrong. Yeah. They got automatons, which are robots. So there's two factions that you're going against right now: robots and bugs. And I think they've been teasing a third faction, which I can't wait for because more content, the better. And yeah, you're basically just there to stop them from getting closer to Super Earth. You're defending it. And the entire shtick is that you are spreading democracy and you're doing this all for democracy.
It sounds like Starship Troopers.
Yeah,
almost.
It's Starship Troopers, but not Starship. Yeah.
That's funny because the book Helldivers wasn't anything about that, but I didn't read any of the sequels, so maybe it gets into that. But Helldivers was kind of like almost a survival story of like them being in these airships. They weren't spaceships yet. They were like high atmosphere ships. And then the guys would have to dive down through this horrible storm onto the planet's surface to gather resources for their ships and then evac back to the ship with whatever they found, and they would have to fight all the horrible aliens and creatures or whatever that were living on the planet. Yeah. And that's what it was. So yeah, this
is a lot more goofy. It's a lot more.
It does look goofy based on the trailer. Okay,
it's meant to just be fun and over the top, and that's because it is. The one thing I wanted to mention, though, one of the things is I hope other co-op games like this try to maybe emulate a little bit, is that you're not just using a weapon. So when you play like your zombie games, a lot of them are just, you've got your weapon, you shoot the zombies in the head, and that's the gameplay loop, right?
Yeah.
You never really feel like you're powerful. Some are able to accomplish that. But what's so much fun about this game is that you have these call-ins where you can call in this 500 kg, basically like airstrike, and it will literally, like, you'll see the bomb enter into like the bugs, hit the bug, and then everything explodes in front of you. And it's incredible. You'll call in an auto cannon, and the thing just chunks next to you. And you see like literally chunks of these like armored units that are normally really tough just flying off of these bugs. And I think that's one thing I love so much, is that the game gives you the sense that you're powerful, you're strong, you're a force to be reckoned with, and I love that about it, that it makes you feel powerful.
It's cool
every so often.
I think we're starting to see some of these things happen with this visual fidelity that we haven't seen before, and on a scale that we haven't seen before, thanks to sort of just the power of modern consoles and modern game engines. They can do a lot more. What you're describing kind of reminds me of Space Marine 2 a little bit. If you've seen the trailers for that one, where the Space Marine is just chewing through hundreds of bugs at a time, and you're just like, how do they do this at this scale and like this visual quality? They're figuring out a lot of tricks around it, and it's cool, man.
And they really use the lighting to their advantage. You'll have these gorgeous maps where it'll be at like night, and you'll see fog out in the distance, and out in the distance you see the eyes of these robots, that, like straight out of Terminator, like literally out of Terminator. Yeah. And it looks amazing. Then you call in your own airstrike above them, and like impeccable.
Why are you so much better than the bad guys? Like, how come you can kill 10,000 of them and like, you know?
Well, it's because we're doing it for democracy, and we're the few, the proud.
Are you shooting democracy rounds at them?
Yeah. Oh, they'll give you a run for your money. There are like, you'll be running around and then you'll just get one-shotted.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. There's a difficulty curve. There's 9 difficulties. It goes from, I can't remember what the beginning was, all the way up to Helldive. Before that one is like impossible.
Helldive insanity.
It gets really difficult. You'll start fighting like giant bile titans, and there'll be like 4 of them, and it's just pure chaos. And then you'll really have to use those call-ins efficiently to be able to come out on top.
How long do you see the whole like progression curve going, like to end game?
Well, I did it the hardest difficulty with some friends. So we've technically beaten the game. We've gotten to we've seen everything that you can be seen, at least for right now.
Yeah.
There is a lot of progression, though I will say I'm not a giant fan of certain parts of the progression. So they sort of have a free battle pass, which I don't really consider it a battle pass, but it's kind of a free one where you go through, and that's how you get your weapons. That's how you get cosmetic items and stuff like that. You kind of pick and choose what you want as you go. Yeah. But each tier, you have to spend a certain amount to get to the next tier. And the bottom tiers cost like 1,000 points. Like you have to get all the way down. There's like 1,000 points. And I think I've maybe gotten 300. I don't know the exact amount over like 30 hours. So it's going to take a long time to get those.
That was just one of those mechanics where they're like, just make it really hard so we don't have to make anything else in between.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a grind, and I don't mind it too much because the weapons that they give you at the beginning are serviceable. They're really powerful, and like they get the job done. The one thing I don't like, though, is that there is a progression in between missions where you can upgrade essentially your call-ins, your stratagems. Those are the things that really bring you the benefit. And those require samples that you'll find on the map. And the only way to get samples is on the map, and then to bring them to your dropship and extract with them. And they're not very plentiful. There's not very many of them. And if you get wiped, you get nothing for that.
Oh my God.
And so you could maybe get like, if you have a good run, you can get like maybe 15 of each. So let's say 30 total. But if you wipe, like it's it. You just spent 40 minutes, and that progression currency is like you just spent 40 minutes and you didn't get any progression in that respect.
Yeah, that's disappointing.
I'm not a big fan of that one. That's probably my biggest weakness
for not making it, or rather the lack of reward for certain aspects of it, but no reward. Because once you're at that higher level gameplay, I assume that's like a big deal, is getting those.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So being like, oh, sorry, like good luck. Try again.
I feel like they could probably streamline that or make it a little less annoying, because I've only upgraded my actual ship a couple of times because they do feel that rare. Maybe I'm just bad. I could be terrible, and I'm just not doing a good enough job of scavenging those up. But it also doesn't help when you're about to extract and everyone crashes, and then you lose all of your currency because they've had a crash problem.
Oh, yeah. That's a bummer. That always sucks, right? When the game's like the most fun to play and it's also the most buggy because it just came out. And everybody's like, oh, I just want to play this game. I wish it wasn't crashing every hour.
The devs have acknowledged the issues, and they're saying, we did not expect this many people to be, we thought this was going to be more niche. We didn't expect you to have.
What is happening with all these random mega hits?
I know.
It's freaking February, man. We're barely out of January, and it's like having Grand Theft Auto
comes
level.
Out of nowhere, 2 million, nowhere near as successful as Palworld, but I think they got up to like 360,000 concurrent on their servers, and they
and that's huge for a full priced game too. Versus Palworld, which was whatever, it was
Yeah.
What did Pal World cost? I can't remember.
Like $20-$30, something like that.
Yeah.
This was 40 for the standard, and if you got the deluxe edition with that included I think the battle pass, that was 60.
The most Helldiverish edition.
Yeah.
Speaking of quadruple A games, as you might call them, Matt. Have you ever played a quadruple A, Matt? Because
I have. Yeah,
I know you have, man. Skull and Bones, the only self-described quadruple A game, I might add. $70 price tag for that game.
Why do CEOs always kind of like put their foot in their mouth every single time?
Because they're not gamers, man. They just are so detached from the actual gaming world because they're just like, let's look at like the markets and trade stuff and currency values and blah, blah, blah. And they're living in that world, which, that's valuable for running a company, but I think any good CEO needs to be connected on the ground level too, to a degree, right?
Agreed. So for those of you that are not aware, the CEO of Ubisoft was interviewed or asked the question, I can't remember who, why didn't you make this a free-to-play game? It was, you're going for live service. Doesn't live service usually benefit free-to-play? And his response was, we've put so much effort into this title.
This is Skull and Bones, by the way.
Skull and Bones. Yeah, Skull and Bones. Sorry. I thought we clarified that.
Maybe we did.
Skull and Bones, we put so much money and there's a ton of content, and this is the first true quadruple A, not triple A, but 4 A's video game ever made. And
it's very much deserving of the quadruple A title and the $70 title.
The $70 price tag. Yep.
Which, man. So first of all, everybody on the planet is disagreeing with this whole like quadruple A product, right? Because it just isn't more content rich than other games out there, for one. And two, the actual base gameplay mechanics and experiences are just not particularly great. It reeks of a game that has had many, many production problems along the ways. So yes, it's very possible, or I would say I don't not believe the CEO and that it was one of the most expensive games to produce for them.
Yeah.
But because they screwed it up and just had no clear vision.
For like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like it was in development hell for like a decade, and they want to recoup their costs, and they're not probably going to be able to do that with a free-to-play title.
Yeah. And so he's calling it a quadruple A game where everybody else sees what it actually is, which is just a game that had dev hell for forever. They didn't have a good idea for what the game should be in the first place, and they kept redesigning and screwing it up. And of course, it cost a ton of money. And by the time it launched, there was games out there that are arguably better that are doing the same thing now, like Sea of Thieves. A lot of people are saying, boy, Skull and Bones just makes me want to go play Sea of Thieves now.
I've seen a lot of those comments too. I'm still hopeful. I'll be playing it. I want to try it out, see what the actual game is long term. But I don't foresee it being a quadruple A quality, because I played the beta and it was fun for what it was. But I mean, unless there's just
this is going to
be
Ubisoft's Anthem, this is going to.
I think it's going to have more content than Anthem. Yeah. I think it's going to be better made than Anthem. I don't think that's completely fair, but I don't think it's going to be nearly even close to what he is describing in terms of quality.
Yeah. And they're just trying to break into a market that is maybe if the game had a 3 to 4 year production cycle when they concepted it, it would have been a huge hit. But it's been going for 10 years, and that genre has been fleshed out now and filled in by other devs, and not only have games released to fill that niche, but they've had time to perfect themselves and become better and like add all this stuff. And then Ubisoft's like, here's our game, and they're like, okay, yeah, kind of same as this other stuff, not really as good.
I saw a headline of a preview, so I didn't read it, but it was basically, think of Sea of Thieves less as a pirate game and more of a pirate division game, where, because you've got different classes essentially, where you could have you could have a healing ship where they fire healing cannons at your teammates. So
I just don't understand.
It's not it's an RPG. It's basically a RPG but with boats.
Yeah. Man, I gotta say, I'm pretty tired of games that just use, like, healing cannons is just, oh, we didn't have the amount of money you spent on the game. Create a damn animation for what it looks like when a ship repairs another ship. Don't make a healing cannon. It's like making fun of the beam
healing
mechanics.
cannon.
Yeah. Well, it's like the cliche way of saving dev money is like to make everything a beam weapon or something, you know? I'm beam healing you. I'm beam repairing that. I'm beam moving objects or whatever, you know, like the beam is like the cheap, easy way of doing the complex mechanic where you don't have to create some sort of bespoke animation that makes it look really cool. And so Sea of Thieves is like, well, there's no beams in a pirate game. What if we just shoot health at another ship?
Shoot the yeah, exactly.
It's a green cannonball. It heals. It's made out of medicine. Like, what are you talking about?
It's nonsense.
Yeah.
But I'm still looking for it because if it can, what I'm hoping for is that if you look past how ridiculous it is, if there is some interesting missions later on where you and like a bunch of friends have to attack like a giant castle, you know, entrenched fortress that's on the side of the coastline, and you've got people that are bombarding from a distance, you've got someone that maybe goes in close and shreds their defenses so that the people at the backside can, you know, deal more damage, and then you also have a guy who's, you know, shooting long range to try to keep that guy in the front line topped off on his health. Like, that could be interesting, but you could also argue that then why not just play a normal standard like Division style game instead? I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see.
It's sort of like they saw Sea of Thieves and went, oh crap, we can't just do what they're doing, so we have to make it where you're the ship instead. You are the ships and other people are other ships, and you're like, does anybody actually want to play that game, though? I mean, like...
We'll find out.
I like World of Warships, but it's like PvP and smaller scale and more tactical. It's not an open world game. I wouldn't want to play World of Warships as an open world game. That'd be a disaster.
And there will be PvP. I don't know if there's going to be an open world, like free-for-all area. That'd be cool, though, if there was. Where you could go to like a certain area and then everything was just like, all right, have fun. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll admit, I feel bad for devs who got sucked into this project and spent years working on it. But at the same time, I feel like the pivot is going towards the indie devs these days. And every time I see a giant flop like this from a AAA title, I'm just like, here we go. Like, it's all going towards the indie devs at the end of the day. Hopefully.
Well, I'll plan on sinking a little bit of hours into it, so I'll report back next time with if it's any better or worse than we kind of anticipated.
Yeah. I feel like we go through phases too, where like Pirates of the Caribbean movie franchise comes out. Everybody's all gung-ho for pirates, but then
those movies were so good though.
I mean, really?
That first movie? You kidding me? That first movie was incredible. Shut your god. The second movie too.
I don't remember any of the plot points past.
The tentacle dude, come on. Yeah. That was some of the best VFX in the history of cinema even today. Go back and watch it. Still stands up test time. Come on now.
Yeah. Well, okay. We could argue about Pirates of the Caribbean. I'll say the first one was fun and enjoyable. I don't remember any of the sequels. They just immediately
That's fair. I don't think I've seen many of the sequels either. But the first, at least the first one and second one, I thought were fantastic.
Okay.
But that first one's a classic.
But it's like when Saving Private Ryan came out, and it sort of ushered in a whole new wave of like World War II movies and shows and books and games and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. We got World War II games forever. And then like Pirates of the Caribbean came out, and it seems like they were trying to like feed off of some of the pirate stuff going on, but that's like
that was like 20 years ago. I mean, it's been a long time since then.
I'm just saying, like, I don't know if the pirate market is as hot as it used to be.
I don't think it's been hot for a while. I think, yeah. I think they had some success with Black Flag, and they thought that, like, hey, we could make this into a spinoff, and then it just wasn't working. They were like, this isn't a game. This isn't going to be engaging long term for what our goals are. It's got to be microtransaction to hell. We got to have that live service gameplay loop like they've been doing with all of their titles. how do we make that work? And they just could not. And so it just languished.
Yeah, I think these big studios are just struggling because they're looking for mega hits and they're sort of just like desperately going for it. And the latest desperation that I've seen is Disney, a company whose stock has been plummeting for quite a while. Has just given Epic Games $1.5 billion. B, not mil. $1.5 billion.
That's chump change for these guys, though.
I mean, I think it's a little more desperate though, because I think Disney's.
You think so?
Yeah, I think they're buying up everything and they're just trying to monetize it, and I don't think it's going as well as they want it to. So. They're giving Epic Games a $1.5 billion deal to create a Disney Fortnite universe or something. We don't totally know what it is. But they're basically saying, hey, Disney has tried to do this before. They've tried to create their sort of little Disney universe type games. I think there was one called was it called Disney Universe? Something like that. Where it's supposed to be these like hub games where everything connects together.
I've never really
because they weren't successful. So I think they're like, hey, we don't know how to make this game. Let's just pay Epic to do it, and it'll be like a Fortnite knockoff or something.
Well, Epic has really positioned themselves where I think that one of their CEOs came out and said that we want Fortnite to be a platform for more than just Fortnite. We want it to be for anything, really. And they've been really following through with that. They've got concerts, they've got all these different, all the different skins, of course, that is basically advertising for upcoming movies and shows and things like that. And now they're pivoting on over into actually making games inside of Fortnite with like Lego. And I think that's been a reasonable success. And I think they can now show people like Disney, like, hey, look at what we did with Lego. And people love that. And we've got this kind of a player base, and we've retained players that are still playing Lego to this day. You could maybe invest in our company now, and maybe that's where that 1.5 billion came from. Granted, those talks, I'm sure, take a long time to negotiate.
Yeah, but they're probably basing it off of all of that. So the Lego deal could have just been another one of those same types of deals that just got started a little earlier than the Disney deal.
Right.
You know, it's smart. It's really smart. It's hard to. I have a hard time bagging on Epic because I really like their engine and what they're doing, and they put a lot of their money back into the engine, and the stuff they've been doing in the last couple of years with their engine it's better than the other stuff out there. They're really trying to make games look better, perform better, and make them easier to make the games too. They're saying, hey, you remember all that crap you used to have to do when you made a game? We're just gonna optimize it for you. Now you don't have to do billions of levels of detail. We'll just do it in the engine for you. Don't worry about it.
Right.
So for the indie scene particularly, it's fantastic. That's why we're seeing so many indie games come out where you're like, damn, look at those graphics. You know, look
at those graphics, baby.
That wasn't a thing 5-6 years ago. You weren't really saying that a lot. A game would come out and you'd be like, yeah, that's cool. I like the concept of it. It's too bad the graphics are indie game graphics, right?
Right.
Now that's becoming way less of a thing. Now you're seeing teams of 3-4 people or even solo devs come out with stuff where you're like, what the hell? How did you, they got they bought Quixel Bridge, which is like a major asset pipeline for Unreal. And now it's all free. So you can get Unreal Engine for free. And then it plugs into Quixel and you can just type in like, I need a high resolution mountain, and you just grab it.
It just does it.
Throw it into your game and you have a photorealistic mountain. And then you're like, I need a jungle tree that's and you just grab it, throw it in, and it's like, they're just making it super easy. And of course I'm oversimplifying things to a degree. Right. You have to have some know-how and optimization in there, but it's still a resource pipeline unlike any indie developer has seen for a long time. So it's impressive. So I'm a fan of them, despite them being a giant mega corporation that does giant mega corporation stuff.
Yeah. And with Disney, they're even bigger. They're even a bigger giant mega corporation.
Yeah, but I hate them because they destroyed Star Wars. So.
What do you mean? They were so good.
Yeah. I've totally been watching all of their the billions of Star Wars shows they're making, man. How many?
Yeah, they really went hard with them, didn't they?
I think they had 7 shows in production at one time or something like that.
Wow.
And I couldn't make it like more than 3 episodes into Ahsoka before I was just like, I can't, man.
I mean, I hear it gets cool because like Anakin shows up, but I haven't seen it either. So
I forced myself through Obi-Wan, and I think that took it all out of me. I was just like, I'll make it through Obi-Wan, and it'll get good, and we'll have some cool. It was so bad, dude. I can't right now. Star Wars has just become a joke. Aside for Andor's the one show that's like amazing within all of it, and then everything else.
It's also, I think, their most expensive show to produce too.
And I think one of their least successful. So if that goes to show anything, you can imagine what kind of Star Wars content's coming down the pipeline in the future. It's not going to be more Andor. It's going to be
political dramas. Nope.
It's going to be
lightsabers, baby.
Super simplistic, Darth Vader cameos and Anakin cameos and Baby Yoda crap,
I mean, it's fine. It doesn't have to be for us anymore.
I don't know, man. I guess I'm just upset that the show didn't age with its initial fan base to any degree, really. It seems like they just kind of tried to reinvent the franchise for each new generation and not make it appeal to the original generation in any way. So I'm the grumpy old guy, sure.
I mean, because you ask like little girls like who their hero is, and it's Rey. They love Rey, and so it doesn't have to be for us. It could have been for us and them at the same time with good writing and good storytelling. It doesn't have to be one or the other, but there is still an audience that enjoys it a lot.
It's like go watch a Pixar movie. They run the line between, hey, it's fun to watch for an adult and great for kids at the same time. And then you watch Star Wars and you're like, who's this even for? I don't get it.
You're telling me they could have used that technology the entire time and just won the war? What do you mean?
There's no rules anymore. They're just like, oh, you didn't know you could do that this whole time. Yeah. You're like, okay, what about, the past 10 movies or whatever and all the shows? And they're like, don't worry about it. Let's just hand wave all of that. And you're like, okay. Star Wars has really become a whatever it wants to be for each show and franchise.
Mm-hmm. Still blows me away that they don't have a outline for the sequels. The fact that they didn't have an outline, they just were like, I'm gonna try this for this movie. Like, what do you mean? It's a multi-billion-dollar franchise, and you don't even like basic outlines? Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a trilogy. Surely somebody had an idea about what the general plot points would be for the trilogy.
Not at all.
Not even a general idea. Not even a napkin's worth of notes on it.
We heard that Rey, the actress who played Rey, didn't even know
Oh yeah, she didn't know who she was supposed to be a descendant of or anything.
Yes, what do you mean? What do you mean she didn't know? Well, it was mismanaged. 100%.
Yeah. I've watched some funny YouTube videos where like the Star Wars fanatics like have clips of, I think it's like Kathleen Kennedy who like runs the Star Wars division.
Yeah.
And she'll be like, oh yeah, we had a plan from the start and all this stuff. And then in another interview, or another person in somebody else will be interviewed, basically countering that entire point and be like, yeah, we had no idea what was going on. They're like, oh, okay. So they just were lying to us about having.
Well, she's not gonna be like, oh no, we just kind of flew by the seat of her pants. Like that's a terrible look. I don't imagine the person
you gotta deny
in charge
it or you
is
lose
going
your
to
job. I'm surprised she hasn't.
Exactly.
But whatever.
Exactly.
So, back to video games, man.
Uh-huh.
You think the future of FPS is in Tribes 3? Yeah?
I played it.
Yeah.
And it was fun for the little bit that I played, but man, I wish those devs luck. I do. Because it's fun for what it is, but I just could not see myself playing that for what most devs are looking for to keep a player base long term.
Yeah. I'm always baffled by Tribes 3 is truly baffling because Tribes has been a failure since Tribes 2 pretty much. Tribes 2 never really took off.
It didn't.
Tribes 1 was cool. It was like a brand new thing. The whole skiing mechanic was a bug and they left it in and it became like the meta.
The thing.
And then Tribes 2 was sort of like it just kind of failed to, it had crazy performance issues and never really took off the right way. And then they rebooted it with Tribes Vengeance or something, one of those games forever.
I haven't been following it that closely.
5-6 years ago. I don't know. I'm probably way off on that mark. That failed, right? It never picked up steam. So you'd be like, you would think that the Tribes franchise is kind of dead because it's a heavy movement shooter that has sort of
heavy movement shooter.
Heavy movement
really
shooter.
Difficult.
Really hard. You have to fire discs at people moving 50 miles an hour in one direction while you're moving 70 miles an hour in the other direction and just like try and calculate the trajectory in your brain.
Yeah. Though when you... I will say, when you fantastic. Hit it, it feels good. Like they've done a good job with it. Like it does play well. I just don't know if a lot of people, because you see all these Call of Duty players and you see all these Apex players who are like, oh, I really care about movement. It was like, well, go play an actual movement-based FPS game. Then they, of course they don't. Of course, because like the skill ceiling in that is literally through the roof. Yeah. Like I would argue you could never like master those games because there's so much going on.
Also, how the heck do you play Tribes on console? What do you give the disc launcher auto aim or something?
Oh, I don't even know how you would manage that.
No possible way, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just an old game that sort of had its time, and there's like these legacy fans that keep trying to bring it back, but I think they're just missing the fundamental part of the equation, which is like that audience isn't around anymore. They're all playing. They all started playing Halo, and now they're playing Call of Duty, and now they're playing they're playing different shooters now.
I'm rooting for them because I always want, because it's pretty well made. For the demo that it is. It's a fun game if that's what you're looking for. I just don't know if they'll be able to keep it going. Also, I don't really trust the developers because they made they were making essentially an extraction looter shooter. God, what was it called? I don't remember what it was called, but it was fun. It was like spaceships or not spaceships, but you kind of were inside of a spaceship. It used Dark and Darker style where it was very like pitch black in certain areas where you could actually use the lighting to your advantage to sneak up. Was that sort of
World War I style one? No,
that was different.
Okay,
I know which one you're talking about, and I'm blanking on the name of that too.
Yeah,
but like it was a cool idea, but then I think they just abandoned it to start making.
I think
Tribes.
I know what game you're talking about. Actually, that seems like a very weird pivot.
It is a weird pivot. Yeah.
I could almost see Tribes working as like a really fun single player, like AAA type action game where you're like invading a planet Starship Troopers style and like flying through the air and shooting all these futuristic weapons at things. But as a competitive game, I read a funny article that was like, Tribes' core player base is now too old and crappy at video games to play Tribes. And I was like, that's probably accurate. Everybody who used to be good at Tribes back in the day either isn't playing video games anymore or just is nowhere near good enough to play Tribes. They want to play Helldivers now, basically, probably.
And that would be a good choice too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see what the other game they made. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that they abandoned it. And I mean, it makes sense. I don't think it probably was gaining much steam. And Tribes is a more well-known franchise, trying to bring it back.
More well-known for failure at this point, though. Which
is come on, level.
Well,
cap.
I mean, it'll
work.
Like if this game fails, that'll be essentially 3 failures out of 4 games. I mean, why keep making Tribes games at that point? But like you said, I don't want it to fail. I have nostalgic memories for Tribes, and if the Tribes franchise picked up, it would be fun to jump back into it and be like, oh man, is this what everybody's playing? But it's like, what was that Portal shooter that came out a little while ago that everybody went crazy for? Splitgate. That was such a flash in a pan, right? Like, it was a fun flash. It was a fun flash. And for half a second, people are like, whoa, is Portal meets Halo the new competitive shooter? And then just like a month later, it was done. Like nobody
What's
was
so
playing
hard
it.
is that these are indie developers trying to go against juggernauts, and they'll never have the funds, they'll never have the
Yeah.
production pipeline to be able to keep the game interesting long term, because everyone's now insatiable where they need to have a battle pass, new season every 3 to 4 months with new maps, new weapons. Like they just can't do it because they're too small. And
Yeah.
it's so difficult unless you're more niche and you can establish that player base like Hell Let Loose or Squad or something where you're providing something that those big games are not providing,
And you have
then you're going to struggle.
a small enough dev team to stay afloat on the smaller audience rather than come at it with like, we've got this giant dev team and we need to hit this giant funding goal to break even, or we have to cut funding tomorrow, you know? So
yeah,
hopefully those games can, I don't know, it's like BattleBit, right? BattleBit saw a huge amount of success at the start, but I talked to the devs and they're like, yeah, we're not planning on massively expanding the team. Like we've done the math and we should be able to, based on our launch sales alone, keep up production for another 5 years. And so you're like, if that's actually their plan to like reinvest heavily in the game and just kind of keep making it better, then maybe in 5 years, their player base will be massively bigger than it is right now. It could just
they're
be
sitting at
slow...
3,400 on Steam.
Yeah. Okay. So
not great.
It's not great. It's not like pathetic or anything, but and
it's playable.
Squad survived on that for years, you know.
Oh yeah, that's 100% playable.
Yeah. So an indie team can survive on that, especially if you keep it small. And then in 3, 4, 5 years from now, when they've like polished every bug, improved every gameplay mechanic, added tons and tons of content, I could totally see that game having like a slow grow comeback to an extent.
Also, I feel like we need to maybe, and this is just a thought, we don't need to judge a game's overall success based off of its long-term success. Sure. And it can be just fun. I love BattleBit. I had so much fun with it at launch, and I got a ton of time. I got my money's worth. I memories were formed. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be something that lasts 4 years. Like I got a ton of comments when I was streaming, like, do you think this game is going to last? And the response was probably not. Like, I hope that it does, but buy it in the here and the now. Enjoy this experience with all these people, with like the VoIP, like the local VoIP. It was great. It doesn't have to be something that you play a year from now. It's okay to enjoy it now.
Yeah, I think I agree with that 100%. In that, one, the devs made money, so it's a success for them in terms of like, we invested all this time, we made our time back monetarily, and we got to make a game that we're all proud of. Cool. Success for them. It doesn't have to last forever. And people who joined in, I mean, you could still get it now and still have fun, but people who joined in during the really crazy time were probably logging on with all their friends and having a blast. You know, I was running into other people I knew just in random BattleBit servers, and then you turn on VoIP, you're like, hey, is that you? And then you start fighting together. You start like joining squads, and you're just like, whoa, we just like made a squad of friends. This is awesome. Like, it's great for that. Part of me feels, though, if a game is multiplayer and it's meant to be successful at a large scale, like BattleBit, you know, 256 player servers or whatever they had. If you are having trouble filling up those servers a year past launch, then that does feel kind of, to a degree, a failure in that sense of like, for this game to succeed, you need a large player count available. So if you can't enjoy what took them I think it was a really long dev time, like 5, 6, 7 years or something like that, depending.
Yep. Small dev though.
Yeah, if that all comes down to like a shorter life cycle where people can enjoy your content, then that's kind of a bummer. To a degree as well, right?
I just think we put so much weight on long-term success for a lot of titles. Yeah, and I don't know if it's a mistake, but I do think there should be more emphasis on the here and the now. Enjoy the games in the here and the now too.
Yeah. I think we're going to start seeing, and maybe not even start seeing, because most indie devs do make single player games, but that seems to be the smart approach for a lot of indie dev teams, because then they get a nice big surge at the start when everybody's talking about the game, great, but 4 years from now, you can still buy the game and play it and have the same experience as somebody else would have had 4 years prior, right? Where you can't do that with a multiplayer game, which is such a big risk, in my opinion, for an indie team to put years and years and years of their time into a multiplayer title, which if it doesn't take at the start, it's never going to take, like that's it.
And most don't.
Yeah.
I mean, God, I think we've talked about this before. Most multiplayer games just never get anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I would say most games are failures, like the vast majority of them. Easily,
but
because
multiplayer
there's
games in
hundreds coming out
particular
a day.
Really have a hard time.
Yeah, it's getting tougher, man. It's getting tougher, and it's that limited time factor that not enough people add into their equations for, should we make a game about this? They're like, okay, well, who are you actually going up against? Because if you say, well, look, it's Tribes, it's a movement shooter. Like, how many movement shooters do we have to compete against? Not very many, because nobody wants to play movement shooters.
No one's playing them. Yeah.
You're not playing it. You're not competing against other movement shooters. You're competing against Call of Duty and Battlefield and all the major AAA shooters out there right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Does somebody want to leave that and come play your little indie movement shooter? Like, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Best of luck to the Tribes devs, for the nostalgia sake. Yeah. So what's another highlight from Next Fest for you?
So I played a lot of real-time strategy games. A highlight was Pacific Drive, though, which is kind of like a survival car game, which
I've been wondering
was
about
really
that.
creative.
Do you ever get out of the car?
Yeah, you get out of the car.
Okay.
So the story is that you go to there's this zone. Can't remember what it was called. Something weird happened, and the government enclosed this island. There's literally a wall, and then you get like sucked in somehow through like a portal, and now you're stuck in behind the wall. And you're talking to a couple of survivors that are there, and they're like, holy cow, like a new person has arrived and they're not dead. This is crazy. And so there's like a story behind it. It's apparently going to be very story driven, but you have bonded with your car. I don't know because the story hasn't explained it. But you've bonded with this car somehow, and you can go around and upgrade it. You'll be able to make improvements to it along the way. I don't really know how, because the beta is quite short, or the demo is quite short, but it was a really clever, fun, pretty well written little title. And I'm excited to see where it goes, because it's an interesting twist where survival games are usually you build a base, but in this case, you're building your car and you're going out and you're exploring with a car.
It's a really cool concept. I've watched a bunch of videos on just the game and a little bit about the devs, and not that it's similar in gameplay to, say, Firewatch. It does sort of evoke the Firewatch vibes in the sense of heavily narrative driven, good writing, good aesthetics. Like the devs have a very clear vision for what they want the game to be, and it seems like they're delivering on it. Yeah.
And it's a lot more narrative driven than I thought it was going to be. There's survival elements for your vehicle. You'll have to repair it and things, but it is, I'm more interested in it now for the story and the characters, which surprised me, and less so because of the
gameplay.
The gameplay, yeah.
It's cool. It's nice when somebody makes a game that is well written enough to engross you on the characters alone, because that's usually my issue. Is games are usually kind of boilerplate writing, and it's really about the gameplay, and the story kind of backs up the gameplay. But it's rare that you find one that's mostly narrative and the gameplay is really just filler, And
it's not the gameplay is terrible. It's just very basic. It's a survival game. You're going around, you're driving. Maybe it'll get more advanced as it goes. You have to, and it is also, you got like mirrors, so you can look back and use your mirrors. And
do you fight guys? Do you fight things?
There is no fighting so far.
Okay.
There is conflict. There's this little robot device thing that like latches on and pulls you into the trees, which is kind of terrifying, because it tries to wreck your car, which was cool. But I didn't like get in combat with it. I wasn't like fighting it. It was more of me just trying to run away.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I also did play some real-time strategy games for Next Fest. I played Stormgate and Broken Arrow, Do you know about any of those titles?
So Stormgate is the ex-Blizzard devs basically making what looks like StarCraft 3.
Yes, and it's okay. It's all right. I love StarCraft 2. I walked. I'm going to sound like an old man. I didn't have a car in college. I had to walk an hour and a half, 2 hours one way to go my local GameStop to pick it up. So it took me about 4 hours to get round trip. I woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning to get there, or like something like really early, so I could get it when it opened, so I could go back. And it was also in the snow, I must add.
Yeah. Was it really?
Actually, I don't think it was actually in the snow.
This is back when, can you imagine RTSs being that big nowadays, where it was the number one game of whatever time period?
Yeah. I was so hyped for StarCraft 2, and I loved it. I put so much time into that game.
Great game.
I adored it. Yeah. This is kind of a mix between StarCraft and the Warcraft series, where you have units that have like abilities, and you've got ability call-ins that you can make that will sway things in your favor. It felt very one note, though. I didn't really feel like I was making like different decisions that were different between the games. Like, oh, this time I'm going to go cavalry. Like if I was playing Age of Empires, like I'm going to really focus on trying to be a cavalry focus, or I'm going to be air this time. Like there's air and there was ground units, but I don't know, it just felt very one note, where it was all kind of very similar each time. And
you don't
battles
think it had the depth of, because StarCraft's depth comes from nuanced understanding of the mechanics. Right. So you might play 4 rounds of StarCraft and not really vary up your strategy because you don't really understand it to a degree. Do you think that could be part of Stormgate? Or
I think it is because of my lack of understanding. I'm sure if I gave it more time, I think you're supposed to be active throughout the entire match. So one strategy I think most people use, especially when they're getting new to a real-time strategy, is to like hunker down, build up an army, and then throw that army at their army and then hope for the best, right? And in this game, you can do that. But it didn't feel like that was what you were supposed to do.
Well,
I think they're going for...
That's rarely the strategy in most RTS games. They usually reward you for going out and expanding aggressively, right? And...
Well, you can expand aggressively and still build up an army, like macro. Just focus on your macro. This, I think, is going to be trying to keep it active throughout the entire match, so that you've got something to do. You can go off and maybe take out some camps. There's like little mob camps that you can take out for some resources, or you could go and harass the enemy. I think they're trying to make it more interactive.
League of Legends-y there.
A little bit, not to that extreme, but a little bit. And
I say League of Legends-y, even though that was basically a Warcraft mechanic.
Right. Yeah.
It's coming full circle.
It is more Warcraft.
Yeah. I'm referencing the game that stole it from Warcraft in the first place. We're just old now.
I don't think it was bad. I just wasn't as in love with it like I was hoping I was going to be, because of how much I adored StarCraft. It doesn't really play exactly like StarCraft. There are obviously they're heavily inspired. Also, the aesthetics of it, I'm not vibing with the graphics. I'm hoping that they change it.
It looks just kind of like StarCraft, Warcraft ripoff visuals, and I personally don't want those anymore.
StarCraft 2 came out like 15 years ago, and it looks better than this game. Like, I don't know what's going on with that.
There's a little, I think it's like solo dev or like a very small team making this really cool looking RTS that's like called Dust something. I can't remember what it is, but it looks like visually, I'm so much more interested in this tiny little team versus this much bigger attempt at recreating StarCraft.
Yeah, and the UI doesn't really look great either. It just doesn't. I know that visuals aren't the biggest, most important thing, but it does matter. And
I think
would say it's a drawback.
Visuals matter a lot, because that's a big appeal of the game, is watching your little units fight and blow up and having that look cool, it's got to look awesome. It's why I loved the Total Annihilation and Supreme Commander games so much, because you build a giant spider robot and its legs, when it stepped on a tank, would like destroy the tank, and it was just so cool to see that. And that overall didn't really have much of an impact on your strategy. You weren't going to be like, oh, if I move the spider robot this way, it could walk over tanks. It's like, no, it was just a cool little thing that happened in the middle of combat.
Right.
But that counted for so much. It's what I think about when I go back and I think, oh, wasn't it cool when the giant alien flying saucer would get destroyed and then crash into a base and destroy everything beneath it? Again, not a major component of the strategy or the depth of the game, but it sure was like a nice bit of visual flair to add on top of everything.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that RTSs keep kind of trying to work their way back into the mainstream. I don't know if one ever will become like a major mainstream game again without a significant twist on it. You know, they'd have to change it up a bit, but it is nice to see them exist prominently within the indie world, you know, and there's a lot of great ones like the Frostpunk games. And, I think the Anno series has been fantastic. The last
well, those aren't really real-time strategies, but those are more city builders. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Anno's still got, yeah. Okay. That gets into the Civ world a bit. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's fine that they exist in the indie world for now. Did you catch up on Masters of Flight?
I did. And it was fantastic.
Yeah. What'd you think about episode 3, man? Holy.
It was pretty wild.
Yeah. Man.
Yep. They're now getting deeper into how hellish these bomber planes, what they had to go through.
Yeah.
Miserable.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see how this series evolves beyond these episodes we've seen so far, because I imagine the psychological component's going to become a bigger factor, because we're already starting to get hints of that affecting some of the pilots, and even the main guys in charge of orchestrating the operations are not holding up so well. Because I mean, like literally hundreds of people are dying under their command, and they have to be the ones like, go get them, boys. And then like 200 people die, and they're like, okay, that's on me, I guess.
Yeah, like God protect them, because we're not, basically.
Yeah. Such a good show, though, man. I can't get enough of it. I'm like angry at Apple for releasing one episode a week. I'm like, what is wrong with you guys?
It's really hard to watch one a week, I know.
Yeah, just dump it like Netflix, man. Come on.
But it gets us talking about it each week.
It's true, man.
It gets other people talking about it. It's strategy.
Yeah. I did watch a movie that I think was fantastic. American Fiction. Have you watched that yet?
No. Is it a new one?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the actor's name. I think it's like William Wright. Jeffrey Wright.
Oh, yeah. I've seen
super good.
That. Wow. It's got crazy good reviews.
So good. It's a multi-layered satire, but also heartfelt at the same time. Okay. So you got like comedy, a little bit of drama, a little bit of heartfelt moments, and incredibly well acted. Deals with sort of some of the most on the nose cultural issues of our time, but in a really enjoyable way. Because normally, if I know I'm going to watch a movie that's going to be like a preach fest or something, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Like,
oh boy.
If it's heavy handed, you know, where they're like, this is our view on the way things should be, then it just becomes unenjoyable, right? You're like, clearly the director's trying to convert me to their way of thinking. This didn't feel like that. It was very interesting, very well done. And it's really just kind of about cultural stereotypes and some of the silliness around them, and the ways we get drawn into them, and how to an extent they're almost unavoidable to a degree. It's sort of the main character's trying to fight against these stereotypes of his culture and kind of falls victim to them to a certain degree throughout the narrative. But it's quite fun. I would recommend it for anyone. Like, it's not an action film, out. But yeah.
Is it on? Do you have to rent it, or is it on a platform?
Yeah, I think it's rental right now, but I'm sure it'll be free soon enough.
Eventually,
you know? Somebody will buy it. Yeah, well, that's my recommendation. Have you watched So I watched this because my kids, they like the Disney Pixar movie, A Bug's Life. You know, that it's pretty old at this point. Came out forever
Quite
ago.
old. Yeah, it's very old.
So National Geographic and Disney or whatever teamed up to make a real Bug's Life.
Oh.
And it's basically like, you ever watch Planet Earth or something?
Yep.
Okay. It's like that, but for insects, right? So it's a National Geographic style documentary, but about insects exclusively. And while I would normally just be like, yeah, it's cool, go watch it, check it out, the cinematography for this, I was reading up on it because I was like, oh, they must have CG'd the whole thing. Because how are you going to film insects doing? Apparently, there's no CGI in this at all.
That's wild.
And
can you imagine how long that would take?
Well, actually, I read a thing and they said they took 6 months to like film cockroach eggs hatching or something like this.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
You're like, who wants that job?
Yeah. Apparently someone.
Front of a camera that's stuck in some like disgusting like gutter somewhere waiting for like a cockroach egg to hatch so you can get it in beautiful 4K glory.
Oh, and it's gorgeous too.
It's amazing. It's funny to recommend this as like one of my top recommendations, but just visually it's stunning. From a technical level, I don't know how they got 90% of their shots. Honestly, it's insane. They shoot it like an action film, and you're like, "What are you guys?"
I remember. Speaking of an action film, the not action film, but it's the same thing. Have you seen the like lizards and snakes on the beach scene in one of those National Geographic?
Yeah, the Galapagos Islands. There's sprinter snakes chasing the iguana.
It's nuts, you're like, this is literally a movie. You see this little guy, he gets like captured by the snakes, and you're like, it's over. And he escapes and he keeps going. You're like, how did they film this?
I know. I'm like, Dibs not being the guy surrounded by a billion snakes. Dear God.
Right.
I never would have made it, dude. Yeah.
Incredible.
I don't know how they get it, because they do ones where it's like they'll find a flying lizard in the jungle, and they'll get a slow-mo shot of the lizard leaping off the branch, flying through the air, and then the camera will already be positioned where it lands on the tree trunk. And I'm like, how'd they know where it was going to land?
Well, my guess is they splice things together, and some of that stuff is absolutely fake.
I get that they cut it together, but still, was the guy just like hoping that a lizard would land on a tree?
Oh, good point. Yeah, good point. Yep.
Yeah, some of the shots in that is insane. I don't know how they do it. And they're like trying to film those Amazonian dolphins. There's like dolphins that live in the Amazon jungle.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And like nobody's ever seen them before because it's muddy water. And so, or nobody's ever got footage of them before. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to figure out how to film them. And like, it was they had to like have submarine cameras. They had to have like little UAV cameras up above, like getting like drones. The top down. It was like almost impossible to see them even when they did see them. But yeah, some of that stuff was just incredible. So the bug thing is still crazy because they had to fake this somehow. I really don't know how they did it, but they have like giant flies this big on the screen, like huge on the screen, and then they're flying with the camera like attached to them. So I think they faked some of that. My guess is like it's a real fly and they just glued it to like a toothpick in front of the camera and then like superimpose the flight scene or something. But
maybe
I read an article and they said they didn't do any CGI. So I was like, how'd you get that shot then?
Yeah, how did you get that one? You didn't strap a GoPro to a fly. Like, shut up. Yeah. There's no shot.
There's no camera that can capture that gorgeous looking 4K footage and be carried by a fly. Just not happening.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a little silly.
So some of that stuff, I'm like, okay, maybe not CGI, but definitely post editing where you cut it out and overlay it on something else. I don't know.
Speaking of silly things, did you watch the Super Bowl?
I didn't know. I should have, because I used to be a Niners fan, but I've just been out of the loop for too long to care.
Bro, did you hear?
Yeah.
Did you hear people are saying the Super Bowl was scripted?
Scripted? No,
bro, I don't know I feel everyone's got brain rot at this point. Yeah, so apparently who knows how many people actually think this, but like people are like complaining that the Super Bowl was scripted and
I gotta look this up. You're full
just
of it,
nonsense.
Man. Super Bowl scripted. So it was a close game. I did see that.
Yeah. It was very close. Apparently the 49ers, I didn't watch it, but the 49ers, from what I heard, kind of threw it, and they just didn't play a very good late game. They maybe started strong. I think they had the lead for a bit, but then they let it slip between their fingers.
Yeah, I'm seeing the news on it, but it just sounds like dummies going like, it's rigged. It's all rigged.
Yeah. I saw some videos of them like trying to showcase like moments that are like scripted.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you got to be kidding me. Can you imagine how difficult it would be to hide the NFL being scripted? You know, like the amount of people involved.
The money involved too. It's like, how much more do these guys need to get paid to throw a game? Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
There's no amount, like the amount of money needed. It's not that it hasn't happened before. What was that like legendary one where they literally like made new sports and gambling laws about it? Where like the Cubs threw the game, or some legendary baseball game forever ago where they actually did throw the game. I just don't see it happening at this level of organized sports. On an individual level where you got like, I don't know, a golf or a tennis player where only one person is the moving
in that case
component,
I can see it.
It's much easier to believe. But from an NFL and let alone Super Bowl level NFL team, like those guys are getting paid too much to throw a game. It's insanity.
Yeah. And well, just the idea that many people involved could somehow keep the secret when, let's be real, people are going to blab.
Yeah, because like, it's actually in baseball, they found out.
Right.
And so, and like, I think a lot of those guys did like jail time or something. I don't know.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Or got kicked out of the league at the very least.
I'm sure they would have got kicked out. That makes sense.
Yeah. It was like some
I just thought it was funny.
Money, some mafia money.
Maybe the conspiracy theories are right. Maybe we're scripted.
That would be a cool story, dude. Oh, we're scripted?
It would be.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've got my Elgato teleprompter right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like laughing.
I've been reading off this entire time. All those stutters is because I'm illiterate and I'm having a hard time reading.
Yeah, we write lots of and like I don't know.
This moment right here scripted as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
We scripted that we were going to talk about our script.
Scriptception. Yeah, boy. I think we ran out of stuff to talk about, Matt. I think that's what that means. We did.
Unless you want to go talk about more about Helldivers 2, baby.
Not really, but I will play it. You know, I think that's probably one of those games that you gotta play it really to enjoy it.
I would recommend it.
Yeah. Sadly, no Star Citizen news this week. I apologize.
Oh, damn it. I was waiting for more news.
I know you're just like, come on, man. What's going on in the Star Citizen world? Yeah, it's basically, I'm just waiting for the patch. I haven't played it in like a month, dude. Like, there's just...
I don't blame you for waiting.
Just waiting.
Waiting.
Still, I'm on that 2024 hopium, man. This is the year. Matt.
This is the year of Star Citizen.
Yep. All right, you want to leave our... Oh, well, actually, before we go out with your excellent advice...
Yep.
For people who want to support the podcast, well, first of all, if you enjoyed the podcast, thank you for watching it. And don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. If you want to see more, you can subscribe to the playlist too. If you want to just watch the podcast playlist, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple iTunes, other podcasting platforms. And if you want, you can join our Discord, which is linked in the video description, and give us ideas and suggestions for the next episode. And you can also support us on Patreon, in which case you can watch the episode live, in which we have, what is that, like 2,000 people watching live right now? It's pretty crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
A lot of people on board watching live at the moment. A lot of loyal Patreon fans. So if you guys want to support us there, check it out. We appreciate you all very much. And Matt's got some words of wisdom, which are going to help you get through life.
Yeah, my words of wisdom today involves cleanliness. If you are someone who struggles with acne, like I have my entire life, one thing that you can improve your situation is to clean your bed sheets and specifically your pillowcase regularly. Also your towels too. Clean those towels.
That's very good advice. I mean, me in college, man, people were like, when was the last time you washed your sheets? And I was like, wash sheets? What do you mean?
What do you mean wash sheets? Yeah.
You can wash those? They can fit inside of those. The whole sheet can fit inside a washing machine. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Recommend it regularly.
Yeah. Very good advice. Very good advice. Also helps stop things like bed bugs and other disgusting things from happening, so.
Yep.
Wash your body, wash your sheets, wash your pillowcases, wash everything, good advice. All right, people, you're welcome. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.